There is a quiet question that so many sensitive and caring people carry deep inside. It often comes after a series of disappointments, after moments of giving so much of yourself and being left wondering why it never feels balanced in return. The question sounds something like this: why do I always seem to attract the wrong people? Why does my kindness, my empathy, my openness keep pulling me into situations that leave me drained, unsettled, or even doubting myself? If you have ever asked this, you're far from alone. In fact, this is one of the most common experiences among people who feel deeply. There is something about carrying empathy that seems to act like a magnet. It draws people in, it lights up a space, it makes others feel seen in ways they rarely experience. And yet, with this gift comes an unexpected challenge. The very qualities that make you so caring and so attentive can also leave you vulnerable. Think about it for a moment. From a very young age, many empaths learn to notice what others are feeling, sometimes even before those feelings are spoken out loud. You may have grown up tuned into moods, aware of tensions, able to sense shifts in tone or body language that others barely noticed. This awareness is powerful. It gives you the ability to connect deeply, to understand without judgment, to offer comfort without needing many words. But here is where the struggle begins. When you carry this kind of sensitivity, people naturally gravitate toward it. They feel understood in your presence. They feel soothed by your listening. They feel steadier because of your calm attention. In many ways, your empathy feels like a safe harbor in the storm, and people are drawn to safe harbors. The difficulty is that not everyone who comes close does so with balance in mind. Some arrive ready to take without even realizing how much they are asking. Some lean on your empathy in ways that slowly drain your energy. And over time, you may begin to feel caught in a cycle of attracting people who leave you empty rather than nourished. The confusing part is that this does not happen because you are weak. And it certainly does not happen because there is something wrong with you. It happens because empathy, when left unprotected, shines out so brightly that it attracts both the healthy and the unhealthy, the balanced and the imbalanced. And without the tools to filter, you may find yourself welcoming in more than your heart can comfortably hold. This is why so many empaths feel as if the same story keeps repeating. Different faces, different moments, but the same result. You give, you care, you open your heart, and you walk away feeling smaller than before. And the question grows louder. Why does this keep happening to me? Why can't I seem to attract the kind of people who give as much as they take, who honor as much as they receive, who see me as more than just a source of comfort? The truth is that the answer is not found in shutting down your sensitivity. It is not found in becoming less open or less caring. In fact, those approaches often create even more pain because they force you to go against your own nature. The answer lies in understanding the hidden dynamics at play, the reasons empathy draws in certain patterns, and how you can begin to notice, protect, and redirect that energy so that it works for you rather than against you. Chapter 1. The Nature of Empathy. At its core, empathy is a deep form of attunement. It is the ability to sense and feel the emotions of others in a way that often goes beyond words. Some might call it noticing, some might call it awareness. But for those who live with it every day, it feels like stepping into a room and instantly picking up on the unspoken atmosphere. You notice the tension in someone's shoulders. You hear the quiet shift in their voice. You recognize the heaviness behind a smile or the joy tucked away in a small laugh. Your mind may not even stop to analyze it. You simply feel it, and in that moment, you carry it with you. Empathy often begins as an instinct. Without thinking, you lean in when someone is hurting. Without effort, you absorb details that others overlook. It can feel almost automatic, as though you were wired to pay attention to the inner world of others. And in many ways, you are. This sensitivity is not random. It is part of who you are. It is woven into your way of moving through the world. But here is where the challenge begins. The magnetism of empathy does not discriminate. It pulls in everyone, those who are balanced and respectful, and those who are not. When you carry this openness, you become like a light in the dark. The light does not choose who it shines on. It shines on everyone equally. And that means it can illuminate paths for those who are ready for growth and balance, but it can also attract those who are seeking to take without giving, to lean without supporting, to receive without considering the cost. What makes this even more complex is that empaths often do not realize how much they are carrying. Imagine a sponge placed in water. The sponge does not stop to measure how much it absorbs. It simply soaks in what is around it until it is saturated. In the same way, many empaths soak in the emotions, worries, or struggles of others without realizing just how full they have become. By the time they notice, they're already weighed down, already tired, already stretched thin. This is not because they are careless. It is because empathy feels natural. It feels instinctive. And when something feels that natural, it is easy to overlook its impact. You may not notice the moment you begin carrying too much because it feels like second nature to pick up what others leave behind. There is also another side to empathy that is less often talked about. When you are highly sensitive, you sometimes confuse other people's feelings with your own. You may walk away from an interaction feeling heavy, anxious, or unsettled, and not realize that these feelings are not yours at all. They belong to someone else, but your system has absorbed them so fully that they feel like your own. This blurring of emotional lines is what makes empathy both powerful and exhausting. And here lies the heart of the matter. Empathy in itself is never the problem. It is one of the deepest strengths you can carry. But when empathy is unfiltered, when it flows outward without protection, it leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you open to imbalance, to situations where you give far more than you receive. It leaves you feeling magnetized to the wrong people, because those who take more than they give are naturally pulled toward those who seem endlessly available. Chapter 2. Why the wrong people are drawn in. Now that we have explored what empathy truly is, let's look more closely at why the wrong people seem to be so strongly pulled toward it. Because this is the question that so many empaths carry with confusion and sometimes even shame. If empathy is such a beautiful quality, why does it so often bring in situations that feel unbalanced, draining, or painful? The answer lies in the way energy flows between people. Imagine empathy as a well of fresh water. It is clear, nourishing, and available. Those who are thirsty will naturally come to drink, and there is nothing wrong with that. Human beings are drawn to care, to kindness, to understanding. The difficulty is that not everyone who comes to the well stops to consider how the water is replenished. Some will take what they need and walk away without a thought. Others may keep returning, drawing more and more until the well begins to feel empty. Empaths often find themselves in this position because they radiate a kind of openness that feels endlessly giving. To others, it appears as if there is no bottom to the well. They see someone who listens without judgment, someone who always makes space, someone who says yes far more often than no. And to those who are looking for comfort, validation, or relief, this feels irresistible. It is important to understand that this pull is not always malicious. Many people who lean heavily on empaths are not even aware of how much they are taking. They sense safety and compassion, and they instinctively draw closer. But whether intentional or not, the result can be the same. The empath is left carrying the weight of others without enough space for themselves. Another reason empaths attract the wrong people is because empathy can create a powerful sense of safety. When someone feels truly seen, it can be deeply soothing. For those who are unbalanced, who struggle to manage their own emotions, who have difficulty offering care in return, this sense of safety can feel like a lifeline. They may cling to it, sometimes without offering the same level of care back. And without awareness, the empath may continue giving, believing that this is simply their role until exhaustion sets in. There is also a subtler layer to this dynamic. Many empaths have a habit of silencing their own needs when they are around others. It is not that they do not have needs. It is that they become so attuned to the feelings in the room that their own emotions fade into the background. They adjust, they accommodate, they shift themselves to create harmony. And when this happens repeatedly, it creates a silent invitation. It signals to others, even unconsciously, that the empath will always bend, will always adapt, will always make room. And those who are not inclined to reciprocate will take advantage of this flexibility, whether they mean to or not. This is how empathy, left unguarded, becomes a magnet for imbalance. The very qualities that make empaths so caring, deep listening, openness, adaptability, are the same qualities that can invite in people who are looking for a place to lean without offering balance in return. It is not that empathy attracts the wrong people by design. It is that empathy without boundaries attracts everyone. And among that, everyone are people who do not yet know how to respect or reciprocate. It is also worth reflecting on how natural this dynamic feels at first. For the empath, giving is second nature. Listening deeply does not feel like effort. Offering space feels automatic. So when the wrong people step into that space, it may not be obvious at first that something is off. The imbalance builds slowly, almost invisibly, until one day the empath realizes they are depleted, uncertain, and confused about how they arrived here once again. This is why awareness is so important, because once you see that empathy creates this magnetic pull, you can begin to notice it earlier. You can begin to ask yourself whether someone is stepping into your light with respect or with expectation. You can pause and reflect on whether your giving is being met with balance or whether it is becoming one-sided. So when you wonder why the wrong people keep showing up in your life, remember this. It is not because you are flawed. It is not because you are unlucky. It is because your empathy is powerful, and power without protection attracts all kinds of responses. The challenge is not to stop shining. The challenge is to learn how to direct that light so that it illuminates paths that nourish you rather than ones that deplete you. Chapter 3. The Cost of Attracting the Wrong People. When a pattern repeats over and over, it rarely comes without a cost. For empaths, the experience of continually attracting the wrong people is not only confusing in the moment, but also draining in ways that reach far beyond the interactions themselves. The cost shows up in your energy, in your emotions, in your body, and even in the way you begin to see yourself. At first, the cost may feel small. You might notice that after spending time with certain people, you are unusually tired. You may need longer to recover, more quiet time to feel like yourself again. You might shrug it off, telling yourself that you're simply sensitive or that everyone feels this way now and then. But over time, this exhaustion builds. What was once a temporary dip in energy can grow into a lingering fatigue that never quite goes away. The emotional cost runs deeper still. When you are always the one who listens, always the one who adjusts, always the one who gives, it can begin to feel as though your needs are invisible. You might start questioning whether your feelings matter as much as everyone else's. You may even begin to doubt yourself, wondering if you are expecting too much, when in reality you have been giving far beyond what is sustainable. This quiet erosion of self-worth can be one of the most painful consequences of repeatedly attracting the wrong people. Then there is the weight of carrying too many emotions that do not belong to you. Empaths often walk away from conversations with more than they arrived with. The heaviness of another person's struggle, the lingering energy of their frustration, the sadness hidden in their words, all of it can settle into your own body as if it were yours. And when this happens, often, it becomes difficult to tell where you end and others begin. You may find yourself feeling anxious or low without knowing why, only to realize much later that you are still carrying what someone else handed you days before. The cost also shows up in the body. Stress and depletion are not just emotional states. They leave imprints physically as well. Tension in the shoulders, a tightness in the chest, a restlessness in sleep, a heaviness in the limbs that no amount of rest seems to lift. The body holds the exhaustion of overgiving, and slowly it begins to protest. What feels like simple tiredness is often your body's way of saying, "This is too much. Please slow down. Please listen." Beyond the emotional and physical, there is a subtler cost, one that shapes the way you move through the world. When you repeatedly attract the wrong people, you may begin to change your behavior in an effort to protect yourself. You might shrink your empathy, dim your openness, or silence parts of yourself that once felt natural. You may avoid situations where you fear being taken advantage of again. And while these defenses may feel protective in the short term, over time they rob you of the very qualities that make you feel most alive. This is perhaps the greatest cost of all, the way the cycle begins to shape your sense of identity. You may start to believe that being empathetic is the problem, that your sensitivity is a flaw rather than a strength. You may even carry a quiet fear that you're destined to repeat these patterns forever, no matter how hard you try to avoid them. This belief can be heavy, making you feel as though your gift is a burden you must bear rather than a light you can celebrate. Acknowledging the cost is not about blaming yourself. It is about honoring the weight you have been carrying and recognizing that it was never meant to be yours alone. It is about seeing clearly that you deserve balance, that you deserve relationships and connections that nourish you as much as you nourish others. And most importantly, it is about reminding yourself that empathy is not the enemy. The lack of boundaries is what has created the imbalance, not the empathy itself. Chapter 4. Learning to protect yourself. When you begin to recognize the cost of constantly giving without enough balance, the next natural question becomes, How do I protect myself without losing who I am? For empaths, this can feel complicated because empathy is not something you can turn off. It is not a switch you can flip to stop noticing how others feel. It is woven into the way you experience the world. And for many, the idea of boundaries may even feel uncomfortable. You might worry that setting limits will make you cold, distant, or uncaring. But boundaries are not barriers that cut you off from others. Boundaries are the gentle lines that keep your empathy sustainable. They are what allow you to give without becoming depleted, to listen without absorbing everything, to care deeply while still caring for yourself. Think of boundaries as the edges of a riverbank. Without them, water spills out in every direction, flooding the land until it is no longer nourishing. With them, the river flows steadily, carving a path that brings life wherever it goes. One of the most powerful ways to begin protecting yourself is through awareness. Start by noticing when your body tells you that your energy is being drained. Maybe it's a tightness in your chest, a headache that appears after certain conversations, or a heaviness that lingers long after the moment has passed. These signals are your early warning system. They are your body's way of saying, "This is too much. Please slow down." When you learn to listen to these signals, you can begin to step back before the exhaustion becomes overwhelming. Another important step is learning the art of pause. Many empaths respond immediately when someone reaches out for help or comfort. The instinct to give is so natural that it often happens without a thought. But what would happen if you gave yourself permission to pause? To take a breath before responding, to ask yourself, do I have the energy for this right now? Is this mine to carry? That pause creates space for choice, and in that choice, you begin to protect your energy. Boundaries also come through the simple yet powerful word no. For many empaths, no feels heavy, even harsh. But no is not rejection. It is clarity. It is honesty. It is an acknowledgement of your limits. And limits are what make giving sustainable. When you say no to what drains you, you create space to say yes to what nourishes you. And that yes becomes more genuine, more joyful, because it comes from a place of balance rather than obligation. It can also help to reframe the way you see boundaries. Instead of thinking of them as shutting people out, think of them as protecting your ability to show up fully. When you are rested, when your energy is intact, when you have honored your own needs, your empathy shines brighter. Your care is more authentic. Your listening is more attentive. Boundaries are not about giving less. They are about giving in a way that does not cost you your well-being. Another layer of protection comes from recognizing what is yours to carry and what is not. Empaths often absorb emotions as if they were their own, but not every feeling you sense is yours to hold. Imagine for a moment that you're standing at a shoreline. Waves of emotion may wash toward you, but you do not have to take each one into your arms. You can acknowledge the wave, feel its presence, and still let it pass. This practice takes time, but it can be deeply freeing. And perhaps the most important piece is this. Protecting yourself does not make you less empathetic. It makes you more. Because when you learn to honor your limits, when you learn to stand gently but firmly in your own space, you create connections that are healthier, more balanced, and more sustainable. You stop attracting those who only want to take, because your energy signals that you are no longer available for imbalance. You begin to attract those who respect your boundaries, who value your well-being, and who give as much as they receive. This is the turning point for many empaths, the realization that boundaries do not weaken your gift, but strengthen it. That protection is not selfish, but essential, and that saying yes to yourself is the foundation for every other yes you offer.